You feel this nervousness on the phone there?
Sir, I've been trying to make an urgent phone call up there.
Well, I don't think it's something I want to do on an overseas phone.
You gotta make some phone calls. Hang up the phone. Prank caller. Prank caller.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Packernet After Dark. This is the call-in show, the Packernet Podcast Network. If you'd like to call in, if you'd like to participate in the show, please feel free to do so. Phone number here is 608-501-0718. New callers go directly to the front of the line. I don't think we have any new callers, but we do have Craig. What's going on, Craig?
Hey, Ryan, it's Craig from Indiana. Haven't talked to you or sent in a call since the Super Bowl.
Good to hear from you.
Thought I'd call. It sounded like you were a little short on some calls anyway. Couple things. One, hasn't been talked nearly enough, is the halftime show at Super Bowl. I agree with everything that you said. I'm not, but I did have another idea, and that is sometimes I think it's like at the end of a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony or something. They kind of have like an all-star jam up there that's playing tunes together, which some people might not like it, but I think it's kind of cool to see this variety of ages and generations and styles of music playing together. I just thought, man, for the Super Bowl, could you have this all-star group, Dave Grohl on drums, and there you got Billy Joel or Stevie Wonder there, and Slash and Carrie Underwood and Dave Matthews, James Hetfield. You get Snoop Dogg up there, and so just you get this variety of people. The one caveat is they can't play any of their own songs. They can only play songs from other artists or maybe even the caveat is artists who have passed. So they're up there playing, some Tom Petty stuff, or they're playing some Michael Jackson, or they're doing stuff from people who have passed. So you get multi-generational, and they can do different types of music. They could do Johnny Cash or Elvis, or they could do Tupac or something to mix up the different genres with different people. But it might be hard to pull off. But even the younger generations really seem to like the older music. I think we've shortchanged the new generation thinking they only want new stuff. My grandson's 18, and I have a daughter in her mid-30s, and they both love stuff from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so I think they'd be interested if they saw some of their new artists coupled with some classic guys playing some classic songs. That might be kind of fun. But anyway, I did want you to check into one of my alma mater's persons that is in the draft. From Purdue, we had a terrible team. So I think there's only one person that's in there, and that's Marcus Embo. He's interior offensive lineman. I think he played some center, but depending on the different draft boards, he's around 64, 52, or 39, so there's a pretty big spread. And knowing that we could use some inside line help, I wondered if you could do a little deep dive maybe on him. The other guy who's on the outskirts, but I think he'll be undrafted, is Gus Hardwick. He's another inside offensive lineman. But if you had a chance to do that, that'd be cool. Thanks. Bye.
Well, it's a good idea for the halftime show. There have been several good halftime shows that have done that. A lot of them, you'll have like the surprise guest kind of thing, or sometimes it is kind of a collaboration. And I do think it's a good call because, rap and rock in particular actually do go pretty well together. They're seen as kind of like the polar opposite sides of the spectrum. Obviously, there was a whole genre of like rap rock. But even, rap that incorporates like electric guitar. I know Lil Wayne was real big into that for a while, at least. A lot of his songs had that. It really can add something kind of cool to it. It goes back to like Walk This Way, right? I mean, it's been kind of a long, to varying degrees of success, obviously. But I think it can work, and I think it would be kind of a cool thing if you had a legendary, like Lil Wayne would be phenomenal for this. But if he was sort of the main act, and then you had whatever, Slash comes out on guitar, like you said, and Grohl comes out on drums, and they play a song or whatever. I think that would be very cool. There's a song that, for whatever reason, kind of sticks out in my mind that I really liked. Rick Ross did it. Drake was in it, some other people, but Diced Pineapples. And it's musically, I really like. There's a piano in the background. Piano works really well with everything, obviously. But then there's a real light electric guitar that plays in the background. I just think it sounds really good. So I've always thought that. I thought, and to be honest, A very underrated genre is funk. And funk is like early, you could almost call it like early rap, because it had like the, obviously funk kind of beats or whatever, but also had some of the best guitar you'll ever hear. So it's just like upgraded rap, where it's like rap, but with really good rock elements. And then it's like rock and rap kind of got pulled apart from funk, and funk just went away and they kind of went their own way. But bottom line is they sound pretty good together. They can and do sound good together. And as far as your boy Embo, interestingly enough, he's from Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. So he is a Wisconsin native. Plays right tackle for the Boilermakers. He does have some guard experience. In fact, in his sophomore year, he was the right guard. So he's played, 13 snaps at left guard, but 668 at right guard and 1,167 at right tackle. There is a lot of talk, like pretty much every tackle, with the exception of, some long-arm first-rounders. Pretty much everybody else, for whatever reason, we got to talk about, I think they're a guard. But that conversation is being had for him. He is athletic, so a lot of people like putting a bigger body guy that has athleticism on the inside to play some zone stuff. He is right now consensus, where did he go? 62, so we're talking, second to third round, somewhere in that range. I think the biggest concern for Embo is that he broke his leg in 2023, so pretty serious injury. The consensus is he bounced back with no issues, but I don't really think that that's true. He had his worst pass blocking PFF grade of his career at Purdue. He gave up 3 sacks, which is 3 times as many as he gave up the last 3 years, which is to say he's given up 1 sack in his first 3 years. He gave up 3 in 2024. He also gave up 21 of his 42, so exactly 50% of all hurries that he gave up in his 4-year career came in 2024. And you can't really say it's because they moved him to right tackle, because he did that in 2023 as well. Even though that was an abbreviated season because of a broken leg, he still played 2/3 of a season. So I would say that there are some concerns with his broken leg. Obviously, that's what the combine medicals and everything else are going to look at. But that would be the biggest concern. And then the question of, and again, when your numbers go up, and it might just be the fact of being a tackle as opposed to a guard. Again, you do tend to give up more, but I would continue to point out that 2023 was still a significantly better. In fact, 2023 was his best year when you look at his PFF grades, and that's where he started at right tackle. And then the next year, he was right tackle again, had his worst year, and that was after his it was his best run blocking year, so I'll say that, but it was his worst pass blocking year. He is just 21.9 years old, so he's fairly young guy, but it's about all I got on your boy there.
Yo, Ryan, Beer Chief Benny here, dude.
Yo.
So Jaire, I guess they're looking to trade him, which is fine. It was really expected, and I'm fine with it. But people are talking about what we can get for him. Well, I'm looking at Lattimore and how the Saints got like a 3rd, 4th, and a 6th for him.
Mm-hmm.
And that dude barely played either, man. That
Sure.
guy played like 2 games. Or something like that. So why can't Goody just cook and like get like a 3rd and a 4th or something? Like, come on. There's gotta be a way where we don't get fleeced here and like just only get like a 6th round or something like that, 6th and 7th, or 5th and 6th. Like, I really believe we can get a 4th at the very worst. So, but might just be better though to get a 6th and dump the contract. So we'll see what happens, man. Or maybe we trade and get a player of that wide receiver. Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like Lattimore's injury history was nowhere near as extensive. Looks like he pretty much played a full season in 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21. Got hurt in 2022 and then pretty much played. He might have missed some time, but 2023 and 2024, it's not nearly as bad like Jaire playing, I think, sub 50% over like a 3-year period or something is really, really bad. And they're similarly talented players, similar ages. I would say Jaire is slightly better, but, I wouldn't fight anybody over it. Marshawn Lattimore just has much more down. So, for example, like Jaire's never had a season under 70. Marshawn Lattimore did in 2019, 2020, 2023, and 2024. So 50% of his seasons were sub 70 PFF grade in coverage. That is, only 3 seasons he was 70 overall. But I think the injury history is much more significant, and I don't know what the contract situation was with Marshawn Lattimore. That's the other thing to take into account. Jaire's contract is pretty hefty, and that's going to detract from the overall value. Now, apparently, not that any of these rumors are believable, but the rumor is the Packers are asking for a 2. That's, I think, shockingly high, and I don't think the Packers expect to get that. I wouldn't be super surprised. I do think the high end is probably a 3rd, would be my guess. I don't know. I would have said less, but that seems to be where a lot of people are settling right now as far as what we could get for Jaire. So it's higher than I would have thought. So if they can get a 3rd, maybe a 3rd plus or something, I mean, if you're trying to get something kind of on the high end. And yeah, if they can pull off a 2nd, even if it's a late 2nd, I think that would be pretty shocking. And I think everybody would be pretty shocked by that. But who knows, man? It all always just comes down to what are other teams willing to do. I mean, you say things and it's like, well, that's stupid. It's like, I know it's stupid, but some teams are stupid. Let's not forget that little detail. It's just a question of does a team have a stupid person in a position of power willing to do stupid things out of desperation, right? There's a lot of owners who will step into a GM's dwelling and say, I don't care if you think it's too much. I want this done. That's essentially how the Packers got as much as they did for Aaron Rodgers. I think you had the owner step in and say, you're doing this, and I don't really give a crap. Just sign on the dotted line. So, I mean, that it takes kind of putting your foot down. That's what Brian Gutekunst does quite well. But also, you have the backstop of the draft. Now, it's possible that we go beyond the draft. Be prepared for that, in which case the compensation would come next year, not this year. If, Gutekunst is willing to do what he usually does, which is just put his foot down and say, absolutely not. I'm not going to be hamstrung by this. I'm not going to give him away for less because you're going to come to the table and say, well, you have to do it because the draft is coming. No, I don't have to do jack squat. He can just sit here and play. So it's that sort of game of chicken while somebody comes and tries to pretend the Packers have to pull the trigger, and Goot looks back at him and is like, I think you do. Because if you don't get him and you don't get anybody in the draft, you can't really field a team now, can you, bud? But see how she goes.
Hey, Ryan, that's Green Bay. And I thought your Brian Good podcast was really good. So I'll listen to that one if they haven't. And also, with the news that Jaire Alexander is being shopped around now. Ian Rappaport came out with that. Here, one thing that I think is we cannot give him away. And to me, giving him away is a 3rd or lower. And I know people say, oh, that's all he's worth because he's got injuries. And, he's gonna cost somewhere around $17 million against the cap for the other team. Well, sure, but he's an elite talent. If he got drafted and, you knew just the talent, forget the injuries and all of that, he'd be a top 5 pick in the draft. I mean, teams cannot just go get these guys. Okay, so if they want an elite, you're talking about a playoff team trying to get to the Super Bowl, they're missing a cornerback. That's the kind of team we need to go after them. And if you're telling me that Rasul Douglas goes for a 3rd round pick and we were upset about losing him, and now we're going to give up Jaire for the same or less than that, why do we need to give him up then? Keep him. That's the thing people don't get. We don't need to just get even if his value is a 3rd or lower, we don't need to get that value. We could keep him. We're going to be opening a massive hole if we get rid of him. And we cannot replace this talent with a 3rd or lower, not even close. We need at least a 2nd. If we get a 2nd, then maybe we could get a Benjamin Morrison or a Trey Amos or whatever cornerback falls. But in the 3rd round, you're not getting anything like that. So, most likely. I mean, you never know, I guess. But Yeah, so I'm one of those people that really believes that. And by the way, like 17 million sounds like a lot. That's actually like 13th or 14th among cornerbacks. Like that's not as high as people think. So if you're getting, I think he's still got like top 5, at least, maybe top 7 cornerback talent. If you're going to pay 13th or 14th value for that, and you get 2 years, not just one, and then you can give him another contract too, so you really don't even have to necessarily pay that because you can make a contract. I think someone out there might find him really intriguing for a high draft pick. Yeah, I'm thinking like a second. So, anyways, what do you think? Bye.
Yeah, I mean, it all sounds good, but I think the injuries are a major issue, and the reason being, like you said, disregarding the injuries, he's a premier player, right? But he's a premier player that isn't on the field, which means he's worth nothing. And that has to get factored in. I mean, if you look at it from a standpoint of making a calculation, take his value and then multiply it by, the percentage of games you expect him to play. So you could say he's a 9 out of 10. Okay, multiply that by 0.65 now, because that's how many, 65% is our estimate of how often he's going to play. Now he's a 6 out of 10. I mean, as far as where he'd go in the draft, that's true, but that still assumes that he plays all the time. It assumes he's going to be on a rookie contract for 4 years, and it assumes he's 22 years old. If you threw him in the draft this year, he wouldn't go top 5. And the other issue is very similar to Aaron Rodgers. This goes beyond the play on the field. This is an issue in the locker room. And that was one of the issues that we had with Aaron Rodgers, is you can say, fine, then we'll just bring him back. But at the same time, I think everybody knows the Packers are not going to put him back on the field. They don't want him in their locker room anymore. Jaire doesn't want to be a Packer, and the Packers don't really want Jaire on the team. So they can't really set that standard for themselves because they're not even going to honor it. And also, I just don't know if anybody's going to pay it. I can't say definitively nobody'd give us a second. It really just depends what other people think, because you're right. I mean, if somebody thinks that his injuries are kind of fluky, and just like I said with Saquon could never stay on the field. He gets traded, suddenly he doesn't miss a game. And he's the greatest frickin' running back in football. The guy that everybody thought he was going to be coming out of college, but never was, he suddenly became behind that offensive line and staying healthy. So if somebody views it in that way, and they're like, guys like this don't usually hit the market, we're going to go out and get him, he's going to be this, that, or the other, maybe. That just isn't really my understanding of his actual value. And that's really the question. What is his value? Because we can say, I don't want to give him up for a second, but if his value is, let's just say it's a 4th, we can say whatever we want. We can say, well, I want a second. That just means he's not going anywhere, which means essentially we're going to end up cutting him, which means we get nothing. Because that's what's going to happen if we don't trade him, is we're going to cut him. So Gutekunst needs to scare up as good of a value as he can get for him. And I don't know how good of a value that is, but whatever it is, go get it. All right, let's take our first break. We'll come back and we got a bunch of Garrett. So that's what we're going to do. We'll be right back.
Hey, Ryan, it's Garrett from Southern Illinois.
Yo.
Long time no call. Sorry it's been so long. Previous week, we got hit with high temperatures that were sometimes only 5 degrees and about 8 to 12 inches of snow.
Not fun.
Which does not go well together for what I do for a living. So it just was kind of a week where it was kind of hard to listen to the show and do my job. They don't go together very well. Anyways, last week got real sick with the upper respiratory virus, and
Eesh.
So I've been kind of out and down and out. So just to do the old throw out a spaghetti dish and see if it sticks to the wall kind of thing, I thought I'd throw an idea to you. Let's see what you think. In light of the government workers who are stay at home and are asked to email Elon what are 5 things that they did last
Here
week.
we go.
I thought some of the callers who haven't called in a long time should call in and tell you what's 5 things that they
I agree.
have done in the last week.
Yeah.
and see what kind of calls you get from that.
I should send out a
there are
mass
some
text to
people
everybody.
We do miss that hasn't called in a while. Trucker Bob hasn't called in.
5 things, Trucker.
1265 hasn't called in a while.
Mm-hmm.
We have every once in a while, it's good to hear Joe Jander calling back in.
Yep.
But, I'd like to hear some of the oldies calling in and see what they had to say. But me, my 5 things that I did, I called in sick Monday, I called in sick Tuesday. Today's Wednesday, and I'm finally getting caught up on your videos and on YouTube with all the whole network and then listening to your podcast right now. So I'm starting to get caught up on them. But just want to throw a little scenario out there with you, thinking conspiracy theories. The reason that's even a word is because the CIA came up with that jargon to throw at people who come up against them. So just consider the source.
There you go.
That's your factoid for the day. So I will send you my 5 things that I did some other point.
Do it or you're blocked.
You can just fire me as a caller.
I'll send out a mass text to everybody on the Packernet phone contact list that you'll send me 5 bullet points of what you've done this week, or you will be blocked from calling into the show. Oh, man. Well, I'm glad you're doing better. That doesn't sound fun. I know there's been a lot of sickness going around. We've dealt with a little bit of that. I know you guys noticed I was knocked out for a little while. This was kind of a while ago, but it hit me pretty hard. I don't usually get hit pretty hard with the sicknesses. I'll get a little sniffle here and there, nothing super serious, but maybe once every 2 years or so, I'll get laid out for a day or two. But yeah, man. Conspiracy theory is a conspiracy about conspiracies being a conspiracy. Is that right? Did I do that right? I don't know if I did that right. Conspiracies being conspiracies are a conspiracy. No. Close. We're getting closer. You know what we should do on this show? I know I'm going to forget and I'm going to mess it up, but that's all right. We'll do it today and we'll see where it goes from there. Since we do conspiracy theories here, why don't we do some conspiracy theories? Today's conspiracy theory brought to you by insert sponsor here. Reach out if you're interested. The phantom time hypothesis, developed by German historian Herbert Illig in the 1990s. Apparently, there was a transition from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar, which was introduced by Pope Gregory the 13th in 1582. The Julian calendar, used since Roman times, overestimated the length of a year by about 11 minutes, which caused a drift of roughly 10 days by the 16th century. To correct this, the Gregorian reform skipped those days. Illig argues that this adjustment was suspicious and suggests it might mask a deeper manipulation of time. He questions why earlier adjustments weren't made if the drift had been accumulating for centuries. He claims there's a surprising scarcity of tangible evidence like buildings, artifacts, or written records from the early Middle Ages, roughly 600 to 900 AD, compared to other periods. He posits the gap indicates those years didn't exist, and what we attribute to them was either misdated or invented. Key theory suggests that key figures, notably Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII, and possibly the Catholic Church, colluded to fabricate this period. The motive? To align the year 1000 AD with Otto III's reign, enhancing his divine legitimacy as ruler reigning at a millennial turning point. This would mean chronicles, events, and even figures like Charlemagne were either exaggerated or entirely made up. There you go, the phantom time hypothesis.
Sorry for the last call, Ryan. Rambling tends to happen when you are trying to work on less than 3 hours sleep and you're using steak wheel cold to get you through the day. You can't put 2 sentences together sometimes. Okay, so I'm thinking a little bit clearly. 5 things that Goody did this week. Number 1, called around the NFL trying to find someone who would trade for Jaire Alexander. Number 2, calling Las Vegas Raiders every hour on the hour to see what they would take for Max Crosby. Number 3, going to dry cleaners and getting all his sweater vests dry cleaned to get ready for going to the combine.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, trying to set up his RAS score bingo card for the combine to see who he's going to draft.
Yep.
Number 5, determining if he's going to trade back or trade forward in the NFL draft by asking his son. I'm out.
I thought you were going to say Magic 8 Ball. Well, Gutekunst gets to keep his job, so that's good.
Okay, Ryan, I have to follow up that nonsense that I just talked about with something serious that I think it's actually something that needs to be applauded for Goody, what he was able to do, and that is when he did sign Love to that new contract, you have to wonder just how much did they anticipate the salary cap going up as much as it is now? Because they signed Love, and it's a percentage of whatever cap, what the cap is for that team that they signed that quarterback to. They're getting a steal going forward for the next 4 years compared to what other teams are going to have to pay quarterbacks this year.
Yeah.
So I just think it was just absolute genius to sign him when he did, lock a quarterback up for the next 4 years, watch the next 2 more years, the cap just goes up significantly, and it just allows Green Bay to spend free agent money on significantly impactful players. So I think they're really going to make a splash this year in free agency, just knowing how much cap space they're going to have. I'm out.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, we've been talking about this for some time. I know 2 different things. Number 1 is the fact that, well, the salary cap always goes up, but it's going to go up a lot more with all the TV rights and stuff the next several years. Going to be some big jumps in revenue and the anticipation of that. And then the second thing was, and when Jordan did his contract, I did this pretty extensively. When you look at a contract, we look at it in terms of what the percentage is this year, right? So it's, oh man, that's 20% of the cap. That's so much. It's 20% this year, except for the fact that it's not 20% this year because the salary cap hit is lower. Okay, well, it's going to go up. Right, it's going to go up as the salary cap goes up. So really, it's never going to hit that 20% number. I'm making up 20%, but it's never going to hit the 20% number because this year it's like 11%. And then next year it might go up to, 15% of this year's cap, which might actually be closer to, 12, 11% next year. And then it starts to spike from there. But really it's only going to go up to about 15% of that year's cap and then probably go back down to, 13% because it usually kind of levels off, but the salary cap continues to go up. So this astronomical thing that looks just absolutely horrifying, and we do this all the time. It's so weird. Like, oh, that's so much money. In 4 years, we're going to look at this and say that the guy's basically free. I mean, how many times do we have to do this with Aaron Rodgers and every other contract that we've signed? I mean, Jaire was too much money, and Rashawn is too much money, and Kenny is too much money. And, you look at these contracts, like Kenny is like the 15th highest paid. I mean, he's still not earning it. But if that's irrelevant to the point, the idea of, he got top money. Yes, way back then, which is pennies compared to what top money is today. He's not getting jack squat. He's still overpaid, but he's not getting anything anymore. So yeah, everybody that gets paid goes to the top, and then Packer fans get mad because if I pay you top money, you should be the top player in football. But that's not really how that works. Everybody that's a really good player gets top money, except it's only top money for about 8 minutes until the next guy gets paid, and then the next guy gets paid, and then the next guy gets paid. And then next year it's a whole other tier. So 3-4 years later, we're still talking about, you got top money, you should be playing like the top player. And it's like, yeah, but 17 guys got top money. So I get it, but also, not really. All right, we'll take a break. Got a couple more from Garrett on the other side.
Thank you, Ryan, for bringing up this whole absurdity of Green Bay pushing to ban the push. I think it makes them look weak. I think it makes the organization look like wimps. Because if a play is working, then of course the team is going to use it until a team learns how to stop it. So I can just hear Nick Sirianni saying to Goody, I'm going to push tush even harder. That's what he's going to do. They're just going to run it down our throats the next time they play us, and they're just going to rub it in their faces if that comes down to it. You're just giving a team bulletin board material, in my opinion. So I think that is a lot of wasted energy, in my opinion, of even pursuing something this dumb. I mean, it's dumb. You read my mind when you said, what if they did that to Lombardi back in the 60s to try to ban, his most successful plays? It is just absurd. Absolutely absurd. So, one quick note. I just saw somebody posted that on BetUSA, the team with the highest odds of signing Khalil Mack, besides Chargers being number one, is Green Bay Packers.
Heck yeah.
So there you go, Ryan.
Well, I would say it goes without saying that I agree.
Hey, Ryan. I've got this deal where I call in with ideas for you to try to implement and stuff, but I think this is actually a pretty good one. So I'm going to share it with you. You feel free to see what you can run with it if you can.
All right.
So I think because your son is such a good draft prospect, thoroughly studies with you. I think you're bringing him up really good on that.
Thank you.
I think you need to utilize his talent and have his own short, one-segment YouTube special,
sure,
however you want to do it on the podcast, but do it this way. So the name of it is Crushing It with Cullen.
Ooh.
And it's all about his draft crushes.
I like that.
And you kind of put a theme to it of like WWE. So
yes.
Get him a bunch of empty juice bottles and let him get real excited about this player, whoever he's going to talk about. Let him pick like his top fives and do a different one every day. And every time he gets a little more excited about this player, something that this guy does really good, have him crush a empty juice box against his head. Like the guys do with beer cans on the beer commercials. Or however you want to do it, dude. But I think the kid's got some talent, so I think you need to utilize it and take advantage of it. Just do like a 3-minute short video of it.
Yep.
But I think you need to do it. I think you need to do it, and it would be hilarious, and it'd be actually entertaining because I'm interested to hear what the kid has to say, because what you have shared in the past, he knows what he's looking at. He knows talent when he sees it. So I think you need to try to at least entertain the thought of doing it. I'm interested what other people think, or if they have any other ideas of how they can do this with you, or, see what Clayton thinks. But I don't think it would be that hard to do, like just have him do a 2-minute segment, have all the bullet points where he can read off of it in front of a screen in front of him, but just talk about his favorite draft crushes. I think it would be pretty cool. So tell me what you think. I'm out.
I like it. I do like it. I got to see if I can get him amped up enough to do it. He's kind of like his dad when you try to get him to talk. That'd be me for the slow people in back. I know it sounds counterintuitive because I'm doing the podcast right now, but I'm that person where somebody's like, "Oh, tell him that story where the thing happened," and I'm like, "What? I don't know. Somebody gave me the thing, and no, like tell the story." I don't know, man. Like somebody gave me a thing, and I fell, and that's it. I got to see if I can get him to really get juiced up about somebody and talk it through. We'll see. Could maybe do it because he does position by position. Maybe have him go through pick his favorite at the position. Have him sit down and watch. So once he picks out his favorite at the position, sit down and watch a bunch of highlight reels, and then just see if I can get him to get something out. You know what I mean? We'll see. We'll try it. We'll do a test run. And if you never hear that segment, it didn't go great.
Hi, Ryan. Randy from Minnesota.
What's up?
Just listening to you talking about the whole Jaire thing. I'm wondering if maybe this isn't the Packers trying to give Jaire a little piece of humble pie when he starts seeing what teams are actually offering for him, so that, I get down to the fact: are you a better team with Jaire or without him? I think we're a better team with him, and maybe when he sees what his value is to the rest of the league, it might be one of those times where you just like, well, maybe I should just basically shut my mouth and do my job and get better. I hope we don't trade him. Like I said, I think we're better with him, but I understand that they do. And this whole thing is to say, you're not what you think you are. So why don't you join the club and kind of get your act together with us? And that way, when we keep you, it might help. It might help the rest of the employee. I'm not making a lot of sense here, I know, and I apologize. But anyway, that's what I'm thinking. Is they might not want to trade him, and they're just trying to show him that, hey, you ain't all that in a bag of chips, so you need to settle down. Anyway, I'd be interested in your comments on that. And also, this whole tush push thing, I was agreeing that I think that getting rid of it is kind of sour grapes until I heard what you reported, what Schlereth said.
Yeah.
And then it got me thinking, well, that makes sense if on those, at least on that play, if they're going to do that, then the defense should be allowed to push also.
Right.
And basically it would be like a rugby scrum, but maybe that's one way to work around it. If they're going to do quarterback sneak, no. But if you're going to do that, yeah, then the defense should be allowed to push also. Anyway, that's all I got. I'm sorry for rambling and not making a lot of sense, but love the show. Go Pack, go. Bye.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that at the owners' meeting and whatnot. As far as the Jaire thing, obviously we know that teams do that a lot, where it's sort of, why don't you go test the market, see what's out there, we'll allow you to pursue a trade or whatever, and report back. I don't think that that's what they're doing. It could be, if it is mostly on Jaire's side as far as the dissatisfaction. The difference here seems to be that Jaire seems kind of ticked off that the Packers don't want him anymore, was kind of the impression that I got. And as far as I've heard, we didn't get, like we heard with Stafford or whatever, the Packers are going to allow them to seek a trade or allow them to test the market or whatever it is, whether it's trade or free agency or whatever. We didn't really hear that. We just heard Jaire was kind of ticked, and then he went off into the sunset, and now all the reports are the Packers are making phone calls. The Packers are, if it was kind of just letting them go out and see what they come back with, the Packers wouldn't be, maybe they would be, but wouldn't be spending as much time actively shopping him as it seems like they are. I don't think they want Jaire back. I think that there's probably something bigger than just the injuries. I think he's been very unhappy for a while, and I was hoping that wasn't the case. I was hoping that everything was being blown out of proportion, but just by virtue of the way that it feels like the Packers are operating right now, it feels very much like it did with Aaron Rodgers, where they just don't seem to want him back. It's the impression that I'm getting. I'll obviously leave that option out there. You never know. Crazy stuff can happen. It's possible that things just don't work out and he ends up coming back. But it just kind of feels like we're past that point. If things were already kind of not great between them, to then have the Packers shopping you and calling out around about you, I feel like that's only going to sour the relationship even further. So I don't know. Again, I'm all in on DJ Reed, man. I think that would be a great pickup. A guy that maybe isn't quite as good as Jaire, but is kind of on a similar plane. Plus, he was never the number one corner in football, so unlike Jaire, nobody's going to hold him to that standard, which will be super nice, where he can be good and everybody just calls him good instead of him being like really good and people saying he's garbage because he's not the number one corner anymore and he gave up a couple passes. So freaking annoying. It's the worst part about somebody being like really good. It's very frustrating sometimes with Packer fans where it's like, that was good, right? And it's like, yeah, not good enough, though. It's like, oh, can you just be happy ever? I'm hoping if we did get a guy like DJ Reed where you just come in and be like, he's not great, but he's solid. That he can play at a solid level and we can just, be okay with that. Fingers crossed, we'll see how it goes. All right, gang, I think I'm going to leave it at that. We got close to enough for tomorrow's show. We'll see if any more come in. Keep getting your calls in. I know there's not a ton going on. We do have the combine, so anything interesting there, let me know. Otherwise, keep the draft talk flowing. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.